The topic of today's lectures is the development of the Roman Empire. From a republic, Rome was beginning to change, and the changes occurred when Julius Caesar started to take additional power as others had before him, people like Marius and the Gracchi brothers. However, Caesar was going to be more devious than most, but also more ruthless in his quest for power. However, he's not Rome's first emperor. That title falls to Augustus Caesar, or Octavian, who was Julius Caesar's nephew. He was going to form a principate. Today, we would know that as an empire. The principate would rule Rome during Augustus' time, and whatever time developed into the imperial system that ruled Rome until its end. During Augustus' time, the Pax Romana, or the Roman peace, was an important period because there appeared to be peace throughout the Mediterranean, and trade was very easy to maintain. However, that Roman peace was held together by Roman arms. Julius Caesar himself was a rather short man who was aging when he became the leader of Rome. Caesar was born around 100, and in 60 BCE, after having held positions as consul of Rome and other positions as well, he was going to ally with a person with a lot of money, Marcus Licinius Crassus, and Gaius Pompeius Magnus, or Pompey the Great. They're going to form a political alliance that's going to dominate Rome during this period, much to the dismay of the conservative members of the Senate. The Senate still held power in Rome in that period and was fighting amongst itself quite often. The conservative ruling class within the Senate was trying to hold off the populist tactics of Caesar and his allies. Caesar, knowing at the end of his consulship that a number of the senators wanted to either put him in jail or have him executed, went off to fight in Gaul. Gaul was an area north of Rome, north of Italy, where Gallic tribes were moving in, and Caesar went in to pacify that area. In other words, he went to war against the people of Gaul. In his Gallic wars, reports back from the front, he told of the great successes that he was having with his legions. And upon conclusion of the wars, when he had to return to Rome because the Senate, still angry at his previous actions, wanted to have him put on trial. Rather than return, as the Senate had ordered, he crossed the Rubicon River in 49 BC with his troops. The legions that moved into Rome with Caesar cast the die, or in other words, made the move that would lead to the eventual downfall of Rome. However, the Roman Republic still existed because Caesar, after fighting and winning a civil war against his old rival, Pompey, who represented the Senate in this civil war, Caesar makes it a point to pardon his enemies. However, with most of his enemies gone, Caesar makes himself the dictator for life of Rome. As dictator, he institutes a series of reforms in an attempt to help the people. Again, his colleagues in the Senate worried that he was trying to become a king, were going to move against him. However, his reforms, notably the calendar reform that he made, that made the months of the year almost as we know them today, was the most important of his moves. In 44 BCE, as Caesar was going to a meeting in the Senate, he was assassinated. He was assassinated by a few of his enemies from the Senate, throwing Rome into another civil war. This time, the civil warriors were led by Augustus and Mark Antony versus the senators who had killed Julius Caesar. Those senators, including Brutus and Cassius, were going to be caught in Greece and killed. When they were killed, a second group of three, a second triumvirate, was going to form. It was going to form between Octavian, who was Caesar's nephew and adopted son, Caesar's right-hand man, Mark Antony, and Lepidus, another wealthy Roman who wanted to try to bring things together for the good of the city. However, the second triumvirate, after killing off many enemies, including Cicero, who had been an ally with Octavian only years earlier, this triumvirate went to war within itself. After defeating Lepidus and consolidating his hold on the west, Caesar defeats Mark Antony. Now by 31 BCE, Octavian emerges as the sole ruler of Rome. This lecture will stop at this point and pick up with part 2 about Augustus Caesar and the early Principate on the next screencast.